Hey guys, welcome back to Dylan's Little Hobbies, and in today's video we are reviewing Rogue One. In honor of episode 9, I decided to go back and watch all of the Star Wars movies, 1 through 6 of which I haven't seen in 5 years, so it's actually really cool to watch these movies over again. I've already reviewed 1 through 3, and then I also reviewed Solo, so if you guys want to know my opinion on Solo, go ahead and watch that video. In today's video, in honor of episode 9, we are going to be reviewing Rogue One 2019. Let's go ahead and start talking about it now. So here's the thing. I hold this movie to a really high standard. I don't know why. Maybe I hold it on too high of a pedestal. Maybe it really doesn't deserve that high pedestal. But I hold this movie on a very high pedestal, and by the end of this video, I hope you guys will understand why I think that this movie, out of all of Disney Star Wars properties, I think this movie is the only movie that has even come close to capturing the magic of Star Wars. And that's personally how I feel. By the end of this video, I hope to make you guys understand why I think this movie, Rogue One, is without a doubt the one that got me to actually say, Disney, you're on board. Okay, so let's start off. Let's start off from the beginning. So here's the thing. I've been a Star Wars fan since I was 10 years old. The first Star Wars movie I saw was obviously Episode 4, but the first Star Wars movie I saw in the theaters was, of course, Episode 3, so technically I really grew up on the prequels. You know, everyone has kind of a different Star Wars story, you know? Sometimes the original trilogy was your Star Wars, sometimes the prequels was. For me, it's part of the prequels and the Clone Wars, but for a lot of people, with the Clone Wars that really got people into Star Wars, and for a lot of other people, it was the expanded universe, now called Legends, that got people into Star Wars. And of course, now we have the rest of Star Wars thanks to Disney. But the thing is, back then, the only Star Wars I really had was, my Star Wars was really a little bit of the prequels. As much as I love the trilogy, I didn't grow up on that, and the Clone Wars. And when I heard that George Lucas was selling Star Wars to Disney, of all people, you know what? I'll be perfectly honest with you. I raged about it. I raged about it to my friends, to my family. I thought, this is a stupid idea. This is going to really end up ruining Star Wars, is what I thought it was going to end up doing. Personally, I understand the reasons why George Lucas did it. Now, a lot of people will chop it up to, oh, George Lucas sold Star Wars for money. The money, while yes, he did get paid for it, and he got paid quite a good amount for it, in my opinion, and probably in George Lucas's own opinion, it's definitely not for the money that he sold Star Wars to Disney. The fact is, he was getting old. I hate to say that because it's George Lucas, but he was starting to look into retirement, and he looked at Star Wars. Now, to us, you know, there's the expanded universe. No one's ever going to be able to take that away. But George Lucas never looked at the expanded universe as part of the true Star Wars. As to many dismay, not necessarily mine, but to many dismay, George Lucas didn't really care for the expanded universe. George Lucas only focused on his movies, and of course, the Clone Wars TV series that he, in fact, created. And when he was looking into retirement, he thought, you know what? If I stopped it right here, then Star Wars is done. I mean, Star Wars would eventually fade into nothing but a history book. As much as we all don't want to believe that, the fact is, the expanded universe wasn't doing that great of a job making the Star Wars universe that much more popular So the fact is, eventually Star Wars would have just faded into the background. It would have just faded into a history book. And Disney, George Lucas didn't want to do that. But here we go with Disney. Disney is the maker of childhoods most of the time. Not just most of the time, all the time, okay? So the fact is, George Lucas saw an opportunity to sell Star Wars and make Star Wars forever something that we all can enjoy. And that's why he sold it to Disney. Now again, I used to rage about it. I thought this would be a terrible idea. And then of course Episode 7 was announced, and I thought it was even worse of an idea. I just raged to my friends and my family about it. I thought Episode 7 was going to do nothing but ruin what came out of Episode 6, which was the ending of Star Wars. And to me, still, Episode 6 is my favorite Star Wars movie, and it's like the perfect ending to Star Wars. Even with Episode 9 coming out, I don't think anything's going to ever be able to top Episode 6 for me. That's just how I feel. I want them to prove me wrong, obviously, but I don't think that they will. And the fact is, when I saw Episode 7, this is what I thought when I came out of Episode 7, okay? I thought, okay, this had potential. I saw that it was a lot like Episode 4, and yes, many people will argue, oh, it's completely different than the story is pretty much Episode 4 in a nutshell, but I did like the way they set it up, and I thought this could be a really good setup for a story. This had potential. But I wouldn't say that I was 100% on board Disney Star Wars yet. And then you guys will probably say, oh, well, didn't you watch the Rebel series? How could you not be on board with the Rebel series? And the fact is, the only reason why I even watched the Rebel series was because pretty much the co-creator, the real writer of Star Wars The Clone Wars, which was Dave Filoni, was doing Rebels. And even so, I watched Rebels, and I did enjoy myself. You know, it is, by the end of it, it becomes really a great show. But truth be told, it has that really childish humor that I don't really like to see in Star Wars, even though it's made for kids, I understand that. But the thing is, without Dave Filoni, I probably wouldn't have even watched that show, and out of everything that Disney was doing at that point, nothing, and this is back in, of course, 2013, 2014, 2015, I really didn't see anything that was improving my opinion on Disney Star Wars. That's just how I felt. And then Rogue One came out. And basically, from what I got out of Rogue One was this. Okay, Disney, you understand Star Wars, and I'm aboard the Disney train now. I got on board after watching Rogue One. But what was it about this movie? What was it about Rogue One that made me finally go, alright, I'm on board with you, Disney. Let's go ahead and talk about that now. Now, in my opinion, Rogue One not only captures the magic of the original Star Wars, but it also just captures the original feeling of Star Wars, which, in my opinion, Disney, before this movie, had much trouble, and even now, had much trouble capturing. Let me explain. So, there is really two types of Star Wars humor out there. There is Star Wars humor, and then there is Disney Star Wars humor. Now, I need to bring this up because there are fart jokes and poop jokes in Episode 1. Look, no one likes Jar Jar Binks for a reason. Moving along from Episode 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6 all feel like Star Wars, all have that Star Wars humor that we know and love. Now, what is the Star Wars humor? It's basically this. It's comic relief, obviously, but what it does is it does exactly what it's supposed to do. It's supposed to relieve us, the audience, through comedy, but it's not supposed to ruin the scene. It's not supposed to take us out of the scene where it doesn't even feel like Star Wars. Now, here's the thing. Disney Star Wars, a lot of the times, they do this ridiculous humor that just feels childish and out of place. Like in episode 8, with that whole thing about the phone call joke in the beginning. I personally did not like that. And now I thought it was perfectly fine with those little characters in episode 8 with the barrel of rocks and stuff like that. I thought that was good. But the whole stupid, ridiculous scene with shirtless Kylo Ren, that's not Star Wars humor to me. I don't even know why that was in there. It just doesn't fit. And now you look at Rebels. Guess what? Rebels has this really childish humor that takes me out of the show half the time as well. And it even leaks down into the comics. I really haven't found it in any of the novels, but it leaks down into the comics as well. Star Wars Disney, its humor is just childish. And look, I used to be a fan, I'm still a fan, of Star Wars The Clone Wars. And you watch Star Wars The Clone Wars, and you might find one or two jokes that are basically Jar Jar-ish, but really, most of the time, that show treated people right. It gave you the right Star Wars humor that you need, and it didn't treat its audience like idiots. It didn't treat its audience like little tiny kids, you know what I mean? In episode 8, as well as Rogue One, as well as even Solo, and the comic books do. Star Wars Disney humor is not something I really like. Now, in Rogue One, I don't see any of that. In Rogue One, I see traditional Star Wars humor that is there to relieve us as the audience, but keep what's in the scene intact. And in fact, it just kind of benefits the scene, sort of. And that's why, of course, K2SO becomes one of the most popular characters from this movie, because K2SO is really the big comic relief character. But the way he gives off his lines and everything, I laugh every time a joke hits. And really, there is no jokes in Rogue One that I feel like went too far, or at least didn't land with me. You know what I mean? All of the jokes land for me. Then again, that could be just me. I don't know. A lot of people say the music doesn't sound like Star Wars. It sounds like Star Wars to me. Now, Episode 8? Episode 8 music did not sound like Star Wars music to me. That's kind of funny. But Rogue One did perfectly fine. Now, you want to talk about the story, because that's always the important part of Star Wars, right? What is the actual story of Rogue One? And it's actually really an interesting story. So, we get this line in Episode 4 that, of course, makes us interested in this whole thing, but we never actually thought of, wait a minute, what was that story like? We get this line of these band of rebels basically sacrifice their lives to get the Death Star plans, and that was really interesting to me. Of course, it must have been interesting to everyone else because they made a movie about it. That's what Rogue One's movie is supposed to be, and a lot of people, they have this criticism. This is probably the only criticism that I actually both understand but don't agree with. And that is the fact that we really don't have any other character backstory, character depth in this movie, except for, of course, Jin, the main character. And I would say, well, that's kind of the point. The point of this movie is really not Jin's story. This isn't Jyn Erso's story. This is the story of the Death Star and the group of rebels who went to go and basically save the day by giving us the Death Star plans. That's what the story is. This is just supposed to be a ragtag team of people who really didn't know each other, but came together and fought for what was right. And that's exactly what happens in this movie. Now, this movie, of course, starts out with Jin Erso's father. Apparently, this guy... So, Orson Krennic, a Empire officer, comes down to talk to, of course, Jin Erso's father about building this secret weapon, which of course ends up separating Jin Erso from her family, and her mother dies in the beginning of the scene, as well as her father gets taken away from her. She ends up growing up on the streets and stuff like that, and she eventually ends up imprisoned when the rebels, out of nowhere, come and basically put her into a new prison. And basically, what they want is they want information on Jin Erso's father. They want information on the secret weapon that he has been building for the Empire. Now, of course, she doesn't know it. She doesn't know anything about this secret weapon, or its power, or her father, for that matter. It's been years since she's actually seen her father. But there might be someone who can help. She apparently had contacts with someone named, and this is awesome to me. This is awesome. This is a character that came from Star Wars: The Clone Wars. And they brought him into this story to basically, combine the whole cinematic universe. It is, to me, so cool that they brought the character in, and that guy's name is Saw Gerrera. And it becomes this whole journey of just trying to go back into contact with Saw Gerrera and find out information about Jin Erso's father. So, let me start off with the story here. So, apparently, a Empire pilot came down and he got this information from Jin Erso's father and tried to give it to Saw Gerrera. And of course the rebels need that information. So they capture Jin Erso to, of course, go back and find this information. Find out what weapon they're building. And of course, we have K2SO and Cassian Andor. They find, eventually, a guy on the streets of Jeddah named Chariot Inway. And Chariot Inway is a very interesting character. He's not a Jedi, which many people thought he was going to be. I'm actually really happy that he's not a Jedi. But he believes in the Force. He believes that the Force can flow through anyone and anything. And it just brings this mystic element back into the Force that I really do enjoy. Chariot Inway, and you know what? I can't remember the name of his partner, but I think it's actually really, really cool how they end up just into the story, and how Chariot Inway, while it can't see, still has trust in the Force, and actually does sort of let the Force guide him. And it just makes this whole story about whether or not they can actually come together and fight this Empire, which is just amazing. It's this whole thing of these small band of heroes against this big impending doom from this big old villain. It's just fun. It's Star Wars 101. It's back into original Star Wars feelings, and it's just a lot of fun. Now, I could go more in depth into the movie, but I don't want to spoil everything, because I kind of want to get you guys to watch it, if you guys haven't seen it before. It is, well, number one, why haven't you seen it? It is a absolute fun movie. It really, really is. So let's go ahead to the ranking of this movie. So let's be honest. It doesn't deserve a higher spot than episode 3, and while I actually enjoyed it much more than the prequels, I mean, you could make an argument. I could also make the argument that the prequels were the story of Anakin Skywalker, and because of that, that's why I love the prequels so much. But let's face it, we kind of know that this movie just fits perfectly right underneath episode 3 and before the rest of the films. I enjoyed this film a whole lot more than I enjoyed episode 2, even though I would argue episode 2 has a lot more meaning to it because, of course, Anakin Skywalker. It's, of course, way better than episode 1, and I don't even need to mention Solo, I think. So, let's go ahead and rank this movie right there, right under episode 3. I absolutely love this film. I really, really do. And I encourage anyone who hasn't seen it yet just to sit down one day and enjoy the movie. I mean, you'll get enjoyment out of it, especially if you are a Star Wars Originals fan. Then you'll just get the enjoyment of the look of it, the music of it, and the humor of it. You know, it's a very enjoyable film. Story-wise, I mean, it's a great movie. It really is. I enjoyed the story, but it's such a basic and common story. We kind of already knew how this story was going to go, and that is just about it. Now, there's one last thing I should really mention, and that's a very, very important Darth Vader scene at the end of this. I don't want to say too much about it, but I will say this. That there is my Star Wars. Alright guys, I am out. Bye. Let me know down in the comments below what you think about Rogue One.